The horrific sounds echoed through the forest. The heroes hurried without a word, but whoever or whatever was screaming and squealing stopped halfway through their charge. The monsters already got the better of them. As the band of brave adventurers made it to the edge of clearing, they noticed a big boulder and managed to sneak behind it, very close to the origin of the sounds. Even though this wasn't their first time, they still squirmed. A few dozen feet in front of them, 4 rotten trolls were feasting on and tearing through what appeared to be humanoid remains. The heroes looked at each other and nodded in silent agreement. Ivinia took the initiative and immediately called upon the magic of the land. The ground around the trolls instantly transformed into a nasty, sharp thicket. "Eat this, you freaks!" she screamed as she rapid-fired 2 blasts of pure magical force, pushing the closest troll some 20 feet away from herself, the unforgiving spikes and thorns piercing deep into his rotting skin and flesh. The 3 other thralls charged at the heroes, but their movement was heavily impeded by the thorns and spikes, inflicting a lot of harm on them in the process. Seeing how seriously affected the trolls are by Ivinia's magical spikes, Thesumin and Vincent loaded up on their arrows and bolts, attempting to push the other 2 trolls away. Big and strong as the trolls were, they managed to absorb some of the blows, but the sheer impact of the projectiles made them stagger back, leaving a trail of blood and torn out flesh as they traveled through the thick thorns. Galvin focused his discordant melody on the last troll, making sure to distract him with his shadowy hound, while sending him further away through the thick and sharp spikes. Beefy as they were, the trolls couldn't even get to the party. As soon as they somehow managed to leave the magically overgrown area, Ivinia simply surrounded them with spikes and thorns again, slowing their advance and allowing her party members to double down on the amount of harm done to the abominable giants. It didn't take long for the adventurers to dispatch the trolls. Ivinia made the last shot, as one of her magical blasts completely mangled the last standing troll. We need to find who's behind all of this. These rotting trolls don't just pop out of nowhere. Some sinister force has a hand in their creation, I'm sure." Her companions nodded as they started searching for any potential clues in the area. Alright everybody, hopefully you like this little bit of an intro story. Not the best one, not the worst one, I think. So yeah, if you like this short intro story, like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell button. You know the drill, you know how it goes. Subscribe to the channel, you know, interact with this video and the channel in any way, shape or form that you deem worthwhile your time. Before I delve any deeper into this video, into the topic that we have at hand today, I would like to shout out all my patrons, new and old ones. So Mike, Matthew, Ewing, Larry, Hocken, BardlyManHardlyTrying, Rogor, SuburbanHell, Frank Fan, Jared Henderson, Kaleron, Albert Kwak, Aidan Harth, Darth Xín, Gary Course, Matthew Collins, Brad Oldham, C Alcazar, Zachary Bradley, Rich Milian, Jeremy Helton, Bredwin, Ya Boy Fox, Bryan Moten, Sean, Cory Williams, Chris Pell, Manozi Stefano, Clay Adequia, Zeb McCubbin, Nathan James, Spiffy, Primal Bass Boost, Lloyd, Lord Gazda. Thank you for all your support, old and new patrons. Without you, I would probably not even be releasing videos as I'm releasing them lately. I know I'm behind on my challenge, but fear not, I think I have everything under control, because I will be releasing more and more videos, rapid releasing videos in a very near future, so expect some increased frequency and capacity of videos starting from very next week. Yeah, but anyway, with that said, if you if you would like, you can consider supporting my channel on Patreon. Yeah, there are these tiers. If you want access to my PDFs and Word files that I used in these videos, these file notes, as you can see, I upload them regularly as soon as I upload the videos. So yeah, you can kind of like unlock them and download them with the Magical Secrets tier, or if you are interested, you can maybe even get some of these other ones. But you don't really even need to, because all I pretty much I'm not gonna even say need from you. I'm gonna just appreciate if you like the video, share, comment, or just like tell some of your friends about these videos. So yeah, that's gonna be more than enough. But I mean, look, if you want to go the extra mile, the option is there. So the topic of today's video, the topic that we have at hand, is basically, as you can see from the title, Spikelock. The idea behind the build is to combine the Spike Growth spell, which we have over here. Let me just open it up. So yeah, Spike Growth, as you can see, is pretty much like self-explanatory spell. The spell that's been pretty much described in the beginning of the video, but I mean, it's a 20-foot radius. Difficult terrain that every time a creature moves into or within the area, meaning that the creature can be moved into the area with or without its will, it takes 2d4 piercing damage for every 5 feet it travels. Yes, I checked Sage Advice, Jeremy Crawford confirmed that, for example, if you grapple a creature and then drag it through the Spike Growth, it receives this 2d4 damage. So naturally, what pops to my mind? Eldritch Blast, right? Repelling Blast invocation. If we go to the invocations over here and optional features, you can pretty much like you can see where this is all going. I think if you have any experience with the game. So pretty much prerequisites: Eldritch Blast, Agonizing Blast for some additional charisma damage on each time you hit. And also we have the Repelling Blast, which pushes the creature 10 feet away in a straight line, meaning that when combining Repelling Blast with Spike Growth, and for example at level 5, if we hit twice, we can inflict as much as 4 times 2, so 8d4 damage, additional damage on top of the Eldritch Blast and Agonizing Blast damage. So as you can see, the 8d4 damage is naturally more damage than just like 2d6 that you would have from your usual, you know, hex damage. So even if you do just the simple maths, you will see that this is 20, and 2 times 3.5 is like 7. So yeah, that's a considerable amount of damage if you take the theoretical scenario into account. And due to all of those things, I would say this build particularly is best suited for tier 2 play. It's got a very streamlined action. Oh yeah, I also forgot to add the Hexblade's curse over here. There we go. Yeah, now it's complete. Obviously, right, we are going to go for the Hexblade. It's got a streamlined action economy. Hexblade's curse is going to be your bonus action. The Spike Growth spell is gonna be our action. And then obviously with 2 levels in Fighter, we get our famous Fabled Action Surge, allowing us to fling one of our Eldritch Blasts right away at the first round of combat. Meaning that we can deal ridiculous amount of damage as you just seen. Starting from level 5, it's viable, but I would say it's at level 7 when you get all of these features, meaning that you have your 2 levels in Hexblade. For these 2 invocations, you get your Hexblade's curse, 3 levels in Druid, and 2 levels in Fighter. In total, that's 7 levels of character levels. When you have all of these features, I would say that's like the sweet spot, you know. At that level, you're still not fighting with monsters that have hundreds of hit points, but your damage per round is so ridiculously high, and you can maintain that damage throughout the combat. You know, you don't just dump like 50, 100 damage in the first couple rounds and then you're just like dealing 10, 20 damage per round. No, your damage per round is significant. Like we are gonna see how much exactly it can go, but yeah, basically very, very high damage per round. Slightly mad, right? Druid is a wisdom caster. Warlock is not even a spellcaster, but it can cast spells using charisma. So, you know, like, it's got that slight madness issue, but, you know, when we are combining two classes that are not based on the same ability scores, you might expect some slight madness. And obviously it's less effective against non-ground units, but still you have your trusty hex spell. So if the unit is flying or maybe, I don't know, swimming or something, you can still apply the fair amount of damage even without the Spike Growth. But for all enemies which are on the ground, the Spike Growth, Repelling Blast, Agonizing Blast combination with Hexblade's Curse results in some ridiculous damage. So how much damage is that? Well, let's just check, you know, let's just take the Spike Growth plus Eldritch Blast combo. So during the round number 1, we have our bonus action, we pretty much apply Hexblade's Curse. We have our action, which we use to cast Spike Growth. We have the action Surge, right, which we use to cast Eldritch Blast. And also, obviously, on that Eldritch Blast, we have the Agonizing Blast plus Repelling Blast Invocations. So in total, that's 2d10. That's 2 rays of Eldritch Blast plus 6. You know, every Eldritch Blast has adds plus 3 from Charisma. So that's plus 6 total. Also, due to the fact we applied Hexblade's Curse, every Eldritch Blast applies additional 6 damage because of our proficiency bonus, which is plus 3. So 2 rays, it's plus 3 times 2, so plus 6. And then on top of all of this is 8d4, as I said, Repelling Blast combination with Spike Growth, because for every 5 feet the monster travels, it gets 2d4 damage, and the monster, if both of these rays hit, it gets pushed 20 feet away, and then due to the fact it gets pushed 20 feet away, that's like 20, that's 4 times 5, so that's 4 times 2d4, that's 8d4. In total, on average, that's some 43 damage. And if you think about it, as long as your Spike Growth is up, and as long as the monster is kind of like trapped in the Spike Growth, or maybe the monster is, maybe you have your frontliner somewhere in the front, and that PC is fighting the monster, and then the monster is constantly going at that frontliner, you know, sweating on him. So the monster is pretty much constantly inside of your Spike Growth, you know, area of effect. You can, in that case, deal on average 40 to 50 damage, somewhere in between 35 to 45 damage every round using this combination of features and spells and whatnot, right? This, even for level 7 character, this is a very, very high consistent amount of damage output. You know, at this level, being able to, in some occasions, I'm not gonna say it's like it's all the time that you can do this, but just on your own deal this much damage is a significant amount of damage. And then let's just say that the enemy has to move 30 feet through the area of the Spike Growth. Because if you consider the 20 feet radius, that's pretty much 40 feet diameter. So you can pretty much position the spell in a way that the creature has to move at least 30 feet, at least on the first round of combat. That's additional 12d4 damage. That's on average 30. So if we add up all of this, like in the first round of combat, you can legitimately deal 70, maybe even like 80, 90 damage, depending on how good or bad you roll. Maybe you roll a bit below. But with this many d4s, like 20 d4s, you're pretty much almost guaranteed to roll somewhere in between, I don't know, 65 to 80, you know, depending on how much. This is a ridiculous amount of damage, even at level 7, you know, like, because you have to consider the monster is pretty much probably gonna have to move out of there, you know, because even if the monster has ranged attacks, it's pretty much gonna have to, you know, you're gonna force the monster to move out of there, so at least you're gonna be dealing some damage. So, you know, you're forcing the monster to do something, because the monster cannot just sit in the area and take 0 damage. No, the monster, like, after that first round pretty much realizes, oh, okay, you know, it's not that there are just these thorns and spikes around me. This motherfucker, or, you know, like, this BITCH is, you know, pushing me through these spikes and thorns, and this is hurting me. So, yeah, like, this is significant amount of damage, and on top of that, don't forget, you do get the difficult terrain benefit as well, because, you know, difficult terrain, the monsters have to spend double the movement speed to move just, you know, 5 feet. And for every 5 feet they travel, with or without their will, they get 2d4 damage. So, all in all, you know, this is ridiculous. I'm not gonna say this is gonna work every time, but on levels that you're gonna be playing this character, I would say that this is gonna be, you know, this is gonna work more often than not. You know, I've played a fair amount of low level sessions, one shots, lower level characters, single digit level characters, and I can tell you from my experience, yes, it's not gonna work always. There are gonna be flying enemies, there are gonna be ranged enemies. You know, there are gonna be enemies that, I don't know, cast dispel magic, whatever, but, you know, more often than not, monsters don't even have ranged attacks, they only have melee attacks, and you forcing them to move double their movement speed, take the damage in that process, and then push them away with your repelling blast, and on top of that deal the significant amount of just like pure spell direct damage from the spell, because 2d10 plus 12 is a considerable amount of damage just on its own. You know, it's like 11 plus 12, that's 23 damage on its own without any of this additional stuff. This is I don't know, I'm not gonna say this is crazy, but I mean it approaches the crazy levels, right? Because, you know, it's situational, yes, but when the situation arises, and the situation oftentimes arises, this is some ridiculous stuff, you know. And especially, don't even get me started on when you manage to get several creatures in the Spike Growth, and those creatures only have melee attacks. So you deal additional damage even to them. It's not a lot of damage, but hey, I mean, it's damage. And as you've seen from my intro story, if you manage to get some Battle Masters in there in your party who can use their pushing attacks, and maybe even a bard with dissonant whispers who can just like send the creature away, right? And just like send that creature moving 30 feet in that direction. Yeah, that's like, you can build around this combo. Like your entire party can benefit from the Spike Growth, you know. So look, I've kind of like spent already almost 20 minutes on this. I kind of expected this to be like a short overview of the build, but this is pretty much it, you know. I'm gonna go a couple more minutes into the details of the build, but this is a fairly low level build. And, you know, if I scroll down below, you'll pretty much see that, I mean, I even said I wouldn't recommend this build for campaigns that go much higher than level 7. Pretty much level 7 is like the sweet spot for this build, you know. You have everything that you need, and that's the lowest level that you have everything that you need. And anything past level 7, yes, if you take 4th level in Druid, you can take the Warcaster feat, you know, to smooth out your spell components and minimize odds of losing concentration on Spike Growth, because, you know, Spike Growth is a concentration. But also, you know, like, if you go one more level in Warlock, you would have 2 level 2 short rest spell slots. That means you can just keep casting Spike Growth forever, you don't even care. And also, you obviously get your Pact Boon and all the other stuff. But I mean, in my opinion, this is like a level 7 build, you know. At level 5, it's viable. It would work, you would just have to like wait one more round. But at level 7 you can have your cake and eat it. You can cast your Spike Growth and push the creature 20 feet if both of those Eldritch Blasts land 20 feet into that Spike Growth. So that's like some ridiculous damage. Now obviously you're gonna miss some, you're gonna hit some, you know, you're not gonna hit every time, you're not gonna miss every time. But yeah, I mean, the basic idea behind the build is that, and I'm not gonna go like how the percentages of time you would hit against an AC of 18 or against the AC of, I don't know, 13. So that's those situations, you know. So yeah, basically, if you like this build, like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell button, you know the drill. If you want these notes, if you don't want to listen to me probably for another half an hour talking about these details, feel free to go over to my Patreon page, pledge to the Magical Secrets tier, and then you can download this file and all the other files that are released in all of my previous videos. There's quite a bit of them, and if you scroll down to some, there's like a Magical Secrets dump where I have pretty much all of the other ones that are not released individually. So yeah, pretty much do that if you're interested. If not, if you just want to listen to me for another, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40, I don't know how many minutes, stick around. I'm gonna go a little bit more into detail into each and every one of these features. So yeah, basically the half-elf is pretty straightforward. I think like this is, I don't even know how, like, what video this is where I use this particular race. In this particular case, I would advise taking Wisdom and Con. You don't need Dexterity that much, even though Dexterity increases your armor class and initiative. Look, if you're not gonna benefit that much from the +1 to AC, because, you know, yeah, sure, you're gonna get hit 5% times less if you do this. But I think that Constitution is more important, first and foremost, for more hit points, and second, every bit of Constitution matters for maintaining that concentration on Spike Growth, you know. Spike Growth is your bread and butter, it's a concentration spell, and even a +1 on a concentration saving throw, it matters, you know. Let me tell you that seriously matters. From my experience, there's been so many times that I rolled 9 on a DC 10 concentration save that I don't even want to talk about it. That's too many traumas in my very short D&D, you know, career experience, whatever. And yeah, obviously there's these all other things: Dark Vision, Fey Ancestry, 2 extra skills. I am gonna tell you that you might, like, if you don't care about skills, there might be a slight change you might want to make. Maybe if you go to the Wood Elf Descent, and then instead of taking the 2 proficiency in 2 skills, you take the Fleet of Foot for additional 5 feet of movement. Mobility might be important with this build based on how the enemy is positioned in the Spike Growth spell. You know, if the enemy is on the right side, then you pretty much need to go to the right to push him to the left, or stuff like that. But this is highly situational. I think, like, still taking 2 skills over just like 5 feet or more movement, I still think that's better. But you know, like, if you really want to fully optimize around, there's like one thing you do and that's it. You know, you might go for this because there might be some slight synergy with the Spike Growth and Repelling Blast, you know, because it does allow you to move farther away, and then you can maybe move in a better position using this additional movement speed, you know. So it depends, you know, but there is that consideration. Me personally, I would just go for like strict PHB, good old tried and tested PHB half-elf, with all of its broken bullshit that you get with this race, because this is still to this day, even Warforged and Kalashtar and Changelings are out there, and Eberron did introduce a couple of broken races. I still think this is one of the most powerful races out there. It's like so versatile, so universal, you can use it for so many builds. In terms of background, I mean, you can pretty much choose anything, but I think in this particular case, the Spy, even though on the surface you might think, what the heck? I mean, if you think about it, if you want to optimize around having 16 in Wisdom and 16 in Charisma, Oh yeah, I kind of like skipped the point buy, but this would basically be the point buy, right? You pretty much see it on the screen. You kind of have to choose something that has at least slight usefulness in terms, like mechanical usefulness. That's at least my opinion, you know, but like, you don't really have to, you can just go for the good old, I don't know, Sage or something. I just chose, you know, like, some of these skills because I do like to have at least one charisma skill and then combined with some wisdom skill, right? So there's a couple of choices here. Ultimately, I picked the stealth. I mean, stealth is very important, and you are a druid, so you have a couple of extra spells that help with stealth. You know, Pass Without Trace comes to mind. So in that regard, I think that kind of makes sense. And if you think about it, I mean, it's very easy to make a case of, you know, you belonging to one of these circles, which is maybe a bit more roguish. And then that circle, for whatever reason, you know, decides to have a spy or something. Because, like, druids are secretive as a class, right? Druidic language says it's a secret language of druids, so it pretty much implies that druids have some secrets they want, you know, like to keep under the rug. So why not be a spy in service of one of the circles of, you know, druidic circles, right? So, and you can even like talk to the DM and maybe like decide to play a dangerous game where you borrow power and knowledge from multiple sources. You know, you have your warlock powers from the warlock cults, and then the druidic powers from the druidic circles, and then on top of that, you know, you might just be like, you just get together with these adventurers, and then you have them like as a third group of people that you have to, you know, like be mindful of. So, you know, you are kind of in going solo, but you have to play like a team player game. You know, you have to be good with all of these sides, because if you betray any of them, backstab any of them, you know, consequences. So I think this would be probably even a very engaging high stakes type of character, high stakes type of game, you know, if the DM is willing to you know, willing to work so much for your particular character. You know, that's something that, you know, every extra work on DM that's taxing. I'm speaking from experience, but I think it's a very rewarding experience if your DM is willing to, you know, to pretty much like allow you to do that. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump into the druid. For this particular build, I ultimately chose the land druid because you will be dependent on casting one particular spell. That's a Spike Growth spell. That's a second level spell, and particularly couple of things come to mind. Starting class features, I think like features and equipment are better, because you get the shield, the weapons, the focus, whatever, you know, the armor pack. So yeah, you have quite a bit of gear at the beginning to be perfectly viable on your own, you know, like just like single class druid. I think it's better than a single class warlock. At least that's my opinion, right? Because you are more versatile in the way that your spells work and your equipment and all the other stuff. On top of that, obviously, at the second level, you get your Circle of the Land. I would go with Arctic or Mountain because both of these give you Spike Growth for free. So pretty much like when you get the third level in one of these options, you get like these two spells would be prepared. Now, maybe Spider Climb is more situational, but it does allow you to have more freedom in terms of how you move. However, Hold Person might just be, you know, like, hey, you just might go for the good old, you know, make somebody paralyzed, and then, you know, like all of your allies have advantage and all melee hits are crits, you know, so, yeah. Anyway, that would be it. Yeah, I kind of like have a little bit of a paragraph here, kind of like going hand in hand with what I have with the background. I'm not gonna really go that deep into it, but yeah, it's pretty much similar info in terms of like what I had over here. You obviously get your wild shape, druidic, and spellcasting. Spellcasting is important for us as a feature because we will be relying on one particular spell for this combo, as I said. Natural recovery comes to mind because for the amount of slots that you have with this particular build, at level 7 you unfortunately only have 2 second level spells. So natural recovery does come in handy very, very nicely, because at least one times during a short rest, during a day, you can you can recover your expended spell slots, and these spell slots can have a combined level that is equal to or less than half your druid level rounded up. So if your druid level is 3, you round it up, so 3 divided by 2 is 1.5, rounded up is 2. So pretty much once per day you can recover one of your expended second level slots, and that pretty much means that instead of just having two second level slots, you effectively have 3 of them, right? So that's a very, very good. That's probably like, this feature is probably even more important than just like I gave it you know, I commended it in this text. So let's make it a bit more accentuated. So yeah, as I said, one more second level spell slot per day, which is quite important for Spike Growth. And obviously, as I pretty much said, Arctic or Mountain, whichever one you prefer, whichever one makes more sense for the campaign. Mountain is probably more applicable to a wider range of campaigns, but if you want to be an Arctic type of druid, you know, coming from the Arctic, sure, why not? You know what I mean? It's just, I just think that this one is probably, you know, like, there's mountains everywhere, you know, and there's only so many Arctic type of places in worlds. You know, you either have to go fully north or south, or depending on what type of world you're playing in, you know, there might not even be that many, you know, tundra, Arctic, Antarctic type of places. So yeah, I mean, let's not even go that much. You have those 2 options. I would consider them, depending on whether you want to hold person or spider climb more. Yeah, just like pick one of those 2. But yeah, in either case, you get Spike Growth for free. And you know, like, we do want that spell, so why not get it for free? Why not get a bit more? You know, in terms of spells, you have to prepare a spell, and that goes off of your level plus your wisdom. So pretty much you can prepare only 6 spells, plus 3 from wisdom and 3 from your druid level at 6. So that's not very many spells that you can prepare. Getting 2 more spells that you can prepare for free, one of them being relevant for the combo of this build. I mean, it makes sense, right? So finally, let's go a little bit into the Warlock. As I said in the kind of like overview of the build, key feature, the Hex Warrior is kind of like a key feature for a large majority of charisma-oriented weapon wielders. But for you, not so much, you know. It's kind of like, yeah, sure, you can wield weapons with charisma, but you're not really gonna be wielding weapons, you know. You might here and there if you really, really have to, but I mean, your first and primary mode of combat is going to be spells, right? So in that regard, Hexblade's Curse is actually more important to you, even though you can only use it once per short rest. Against that one very annoying enemy that you have to deal with, you kind of like it extends your crit range, increases your damage obviously, and obviously if the cursed target dies, which I mean with this build is almost guaranteed at level 7, with the amount of potential damage you can deal, which is ridiculous. Yeah, you can kind of like heal yourself a little bit. So yeah, it's good for that regard. Obviously, as we get to 2nd level, we get the Eldritch Invocations, as I already told in the beginning of the video, at the first half of the video. Repelling Blast is probably even more important than Agonizing Blast, because compared to like your typical Sorclock build, which, you know, has to be decently high level to have enough sorcery points, which does rely on Agonizing Blast to deal its damage, Repelling Blast actually deals more damage than Agonizing Blast because of the indirect combo with Spike Growth. You know, every time you push a creature 10 feet, you deal 4d4 piercing damage. So yeah, that's pretty much like what's important for that. You do learn a couple of spells. You're a charisma based caster, you have 2 first level slots. They are short rest, and you have arcane focus. Now this arcane focus and druidic focus might be a point of contention in between your DM. To my knowledge, I'm not actually gonna check this, but I think I'm pretty much right on this. Both Druidic Focus and Arcane Focus can be a staff, you know, there's a staff listed as an option. So, talk to your DM, ask him whether you can use like a single focus as a focus for both of your Druidic and Warlock spells. Most DMs don't even care about that. I mean, me personally, I would say, yeah, sure, why not? You have like, you're pretty much like a multiclass, so why wouldn't your staff be, you know, a focus for both of your spells? But I mean, just like talk to your DM, this might be a point of contention, because as rules is written, there is a difference, because one is called Arcane Focus, while another one is called Druidic Focus, so I guess there is some, I don't know, essential difference between them. But like, if you ask me, I don't see the point of making that distinction. You know, if you have a staff and, you know, it can serve as both Druidic and Arcane Focus, just like use it for that regard, yeah. So there's that. Obviously, Eldritch Invocations, Repelling Blast first and foremost for the maximum amount of damage. Agonizing Blast, that additional damage. You know, 6 damage is 6 damage. That's something that you, why would you not have it if you can, right? There is something that you can do differently though. You can, for example, take Grasp of Hadar, which instead of pushing the creature away from you, pulls the creature closer to you. I don't think you need this invocation. If you really need to pull the creature closer to you, you have a very good druid cantrip, which is called Thorn Whip. Due to the fact that both of your charisma and wisdom are the same number, you pretty much have the same spell attack modifier for both of your charisma and for both of your warlock and druid cantrips. But let's just say there is that option, because in terms of Thorn Whip, it's only 1 attack roll, and the creature is there's a limit in terms of like the size of the creature, and also the creature can only get like 10 feet closer to you, right? Well, in terms of Grasp of Hadar, that's also true, like you're limited to 10 feet closer to you, but there's no limit to the size of the creature you can affect with this invocation. And also your Eldritch Blast, you have 2 attack rolls with it, so you have 2 chances to hit and pull the creature 10 feet closer to you. You pretty much like, if the creature is at the opposite end of the Spike Growth, you might even want to pull the creature closer to you, right? So there is I would say, a fair argument for taking Grasp of Hadar instead of Agonizing Blast. Let me actually put that in there. I wouldn't say that's the best option, because Agonizing Blast pretty much synergizes with Repelling Blast. But if you want the 2 modes of like dragging and pushing the creature through, like pulling or pushing the creature through the Spike Growth, sure, I mean, Grasp of Hadar is probably like, is a good alternative to Agonizing Blast. Finally, you have the 2 levels in Fighter. Obviously, the main thing we are interested in is Action Surge, because this will allow us to cast 2 spells. First cast 2 spells in a single round. So first you cast Spike Growth, obviously, and then you cast Eldritch Blast. You do get a couple of other good things. You get the fighting style, defense. You're a spell slinger, so neither, like, none of these things, like, why would you have archery? That's weapons. Dueling is weapons. Great weapon, like even the name says. Two weapon, the name says. The only two viable things are protection or defense. Defense is better because it's just like a flat increase to your AC. Protection is situational. You have to be wielding a shield, and you know, why would you waste your reaction on that if you can, like, I don't know, use your reaction on something else? So defense pretty much makes the most sense, and based on the fact that this is still a lower level character, this is still like a single digit level build. +1 bonus to AC actually matters, and also kind of compensates a little bit for your less dexterity, right? So you do start with 12 in dexterity instead of like what you would usually expect for a medium armor wielding character, like I don't know, 14. You pretty much don't have enough point by points, right? So your dexterity is slightly compromised due to you having to, you know, be two ability score type of character. You can opt to maybe make Wisdom 14. I don't think this is a bad choice, but this would kind of like leave you with that awkward 26 out of 27. So I think ultimately it's just better to have 16 and 16 in both of these, because you will have a fair amount of options with both of your Druid and Warlock in terms of what spells you take. So better to have like both Wisdom and Charisma, because you'll probably be using both of the Warlock spells and Druid spells in some cases. So yeah, I mean, why not? So yeah, that's it for the fighter. Second wind, obviously, very good thing to have as a bonus action heal. Just a little bit of extra hit points in order to get you out of dicey situations. And obviously action surge, as I said, it's set up to execute the Spike Growth plus Eldritch Blast combo in the first round of combat, instead of waiting for round number 2, which is, again, the reason why I say yes, this build will work on level 5, but ultimately, like, the sweet spot for this build is level 7. You know, 2 plus 2 is 4, and then 3 from the Land Druid, it's like 7, so yeah, it's pretty much it. In terms of spells, kind of like touched upon some of them already. Guidance, obviously, it's one of the best cantrips you can have, period. Thorn Whip is the offensive cantrip. If you start from level 1, 2 or 3, I would pretty much advise you to take this cantrip. Regardless, you might not need it, maybe, if you're only interested in, like, if you don't want to optimize that much around combat, if you need maybe a bit more utility in terms of cantrip options. But due to the fact you are a land druid, you do get additional cantrip that you can learn. And if we go back to the land druid, you can pretty much see, like, bonus cantrip, you learn 1 additional cantrip. Usually druids have 2 at level 3, but you have 3 because you're level 3. And then I would say something from these options, I would say, are the best. Now, Mold Earth, Control Flames, Shape Water are pretty much your elemental control utility cantrips. Similar type of design intent behind them. Mold Earth is probably the best, I would say, and kind of like would make the most thematic sense, because, you know, shape, you know, spike growth, pretty much like these thorns and spikes sprout out from the ground, and Mold Earth allows you to manipulate ground, so that would make sense. But also mending is useful, you know, especially if some of your other party members have Mold Earth to begin with. But also Control Flames or Shape Water, both of them are useful. So talk to your DM, cooperate with the players to avoid useless choices and overlap with other party members, you know. So that's pretty much the way I would approach it. In terms of Warlock cantrips, there's pretty much like only a couple of options, right? There's one option, Eldritch Blast, because this build heavily relies on it. And then you know, like, you can choose another offensive cantrip. I just don't think you need it, especially if you take Thorn Whip. Because Thorn Whip is a melee spell attack, even though it has the 30 feet range. So if you have that, you have one melee option, you have one ranged option. That's pretty much all you need. And then you can take your good old Prestidigitation. You can go for Minor Illusion, but I would say, I mean, I don't know. Like you can choose, whatever you want, right? Both of them would make sense, you know. But you know, depending on what you want to do. Maybe you just want to be more cerebral, or maybe you just want to be more utilitarian. Either options are gonna work for you. So pick what you like best, right? In terms of level 1 spells, I mean, druids prepare spells, so you can pretty much have any of these at any given day. I would just say a couple of options that I would recommend. Longstrider, as I already mentioned, in terms of the racial choice, half elf, the particular wood elf descent, giving you a bit more movement speed. I would say, following that similar line of thought, I would say that Longstrider would make sense because of that 1 hour duration. It increases your mobility and pretty much allows you to position yourselves better in terms of your enemy's position in Spike Growth. You know, as I said, if the enemy is on the left, you need to be on the left in order to push the enemy to the right. Again, you know, you might use Thorn Whip or even go as far as take Grasp of Hadar to pull the enemy closer to you and drag the enemy through the Spike Growth that way. But I think, you know, if you take Longstrider and based on the amount of damage that you can do, just during the first round of combat and even the second one, if one of your allies kind of like indirectly manages to keep the enemy in the Spike Growth, you pretty much don't even need any of those things. So Longstrider would be pretty good on its own. Absorb Elements, like I always mention how good this spell is. You probably won't need it as much on level 7, even though that's a level that there's a fair amount of certainty some type of elemental damage will come your way. You know, there's like this is a lot of different types of damage that this spell can help you against. So, and also like you would deal a little bit more damage. Now it is a melee attack, but you know, it kind of synergizes with Thorn Whip because Thorn Whip is a melee attack. So, you know, if nothing else, it kind of like indirectly heals you, because every time you take that elemental damage, you pretty much become resistant temporarily to it. Healing Word, Goodberry, or Cure Wounds. I would pick Healing Word if over the other two, but either one of these would work, because a druid without at least one healing spell is doing him or herself and the whole party a disservice. Detect Magic, Speak with Animals. Detect Magic is more, I'm gonna say, it's more generic option. It's more probably versatile, more often useful. But Speak with Animals would kind of make sense, especially if you're in a wilderness and you're the type of, you know, like you have that spy background. So why would you not speak with creatures of the wild, right? You're a druid. You have that like druidic spy vibe to you. So Speak with Animals, I mean, it's situational, but depending on where you at, speak to your DM, right? Speak to your DM, ask your DM, is this gonna be more urban campaign or more wilderness type of campaign, you know? The DM doesn't even have to tell you, you know, like, you need this or this spell. You just, you know, you ask general type of questions, you know, because the general type of theme and vibe and terrain and locations that you're gonna be playing in are gonna affect your spell choices. So, you know, always talk to your DM. Entangle is kind of like a little brother of Spike Growth, because before you graduate to Spikes and Thorns, this spell will help you deal with most of the lower level enemies, and not to mention, like, if the enemies fail the saving throw, they get restrained, and like restrained condition is ridiculously good for your allies, because advantage on attack rolls, the creature has disadvantage on their attack rolls. Restraint is crazy good. I would also take Fairy Fire because Fairy Fire works even on flying monsters. So good to have just in case, like, you fight a lot of flying monsters, then Entangle is kind of shitty. So yeah, it's good to have that. Finally, we have the Warlock. I would say, like, there's only a couple of good spells to take. Like, it's a pretty straightforward thing with Warlock. You have your Hex, which, even though Spike Growth undoubtedly deals more damage than Hex, as we've just, like, seen a couple dozen minutes ago, I would still take Hex because, like, again, if you deal with flying enemies, or maybe even, I don't know, climbing enemies, burrowing enemies, swimming enemies, you know, Hex is more versatile in that regard, and your deep damage per round won't suffer as much if you find yourself unable to fully benefit from the Spike Growth spell. Obviously, Armor of Agathis, if the sessions are not combat heavy, you can even afford casting it with your level 2 druid slots, even though I would pretty much reserve level 2 slots, like, exclusively for Spike Growth. But Natural Recovery does give you effectively one more level 2 slot. So if it's not a combat heavy campaign, if there's pretty much like one or maybe two campaigns per adventuring day, Armor of Agathis as a level 2 would make sense because it would strictly increase your hit points and, you know, allow you to tank more damage, deal more damage, because, you know, as you know, Armor of Agathis not only gives you more hit points, but also if a creature hits you with melee attack, you deal these hit points back as damage. So definitely these two. You do need some utility, I think, because if you are playing in combat only campaign, I guess not, but most full-fledged campaigns have at least a little bit of exploration and mystery and social encounters and whatnot. So comprehend languages, I think, makes sense to, like, cover for that hole, you know. And you're a spy after all, so it pays to be a polyglot, right? It pays to know languages as a spy. So that's it. Level 2, obviously, Spike Growth. This is auto prepare spell for you, so just, you know, that's it, you know, you have it if you take the mountain or Arctic length druid. If you don't, you can still prepare it, you know, you are, as soon as you hit level 3 druid and you decide to take some other circle other than mountain or Arctic, you can still prepare the spell, it's on your list. So yeah, that's pretty much it for Spike Growth. I kind of, like, repeated myself over how good this spell is with this particular type of combo. I would also consider a couple of other spells. You cannot really go wrong with Pass Without Trace. Don't know where it's at. Okay, first level, sorry, second one, there we go. So Pass Without Trace is like one of those staple level 2 druid spells, which pretty much, like, plus 10 to dexterity. You cannot be, like, you leave no tracks. You cannot be tracked by other than by magical means. It's crazy good for just a second level spell, and, like, your entire party gets a benefit. This can easily be even like a level 3 spell, but for whatever reason they decided to make it level 2, and because it's a part of the official spells, you know, like, just take it. You will at least be able to use it to great success at least once in a campaign, and I'm sure you're gonna be able to use it more than once. Healing Spirit, I don't like this spell. It's legitimately broken. In its raw form, it's in terms of, like, the raw amount of healing it can do in 1 minute, compared to every other healing spell in the game, nothing even compares. This spell is legitimately broken, and if your DM doesn't impose some home rules, which I think every half competent DM at this point should do with this particular spell, I mean, just take it. With or without those home rules, I think this spell is still good, so, you know, just have it. Locate Object is, if you talk to me like 2 years ago, I would say, whatever. But this spell is really good. It's highly useful when tracking down thieves, runaways, or abducted party members. So, yeah, a shout out to Feta if you're listening to this video. You know who you are. For, you know, like, making me, you know, convincing me that this spell is actually, like, really good. Now, Lesser Restoration, like, oftentimes I say this spell is kind of like, yeah, take it, because when you need it, it's good. I still think it's good on paper, but I find the spell so highly situational and mostly like a dead weight on your list of prepared spells, that oftentimes, like 9 out of 10 times, you can go through your adventuring day and not like even worry about having this spell prepared. But that said, if you find yourself in a situation, particularly dealing with like paralyzed condition, and you can help your friend break out of paralysis, it's a major win, you know, because being paralyzed sucks, and it can result in some, I don't know, it can result in some deaths, especially on lower levels, because of the critical damage. You know, if you read into the condition, any attack in 5 feet distance is considered a critical hit. So yeah, it's crazy. So that's it for Lesser. Animal Messenger kind of makes sense for thematic reasons, you know, you're a spy after all, but can be a very useful regardless of that, depending on the DM setting, campaign, story, whatever, yada yada, you know, usual suspect reasons. I would say this is, you know, you don't really have to take this spell, but I mean, in the hands of creative and capable player, and if you are invested in a story, if you make some connections, if you make it an effort to make connections, who you can semi-trust or trust completely, or maybe just like engage in some background, you know, behind the curtain, politicizing, you know, like you're pulling some strings on your own, then this spell can be very effective in that regard, albeit a bit limited. But for a second level spell that's a ritual, and you do have a ritual type of casting as a druid, so you don't even have to spend a spell slot, you just do hoodoo voodoo voodoo for 10 minutes. I think it's reasonable enough to be somewhat good choice. All of these other spells, obviously, like, you cannot go wrong with them. Other than Dark Vision, you don't need Dark Vision because you already have it. But yeah, I would say that's situational. Pretty much like that's it for the build. I already kind of like covered this, the progression. I would start in Druid the first 3 levels, switch to Warlock for level 4 and 5. And then in finally at level 6 and finishing with level 7, I would take 2 levels in Fighter. This completes the basic core features that you need for this build to work as advertised. And obviously past level 7, again, would not recommend, even past level 10, to be honest. 9 is, I guess, as far as I would go, because every level up, every additional level that you go above level 7, the monsters have dozens and dozens of more hit points, you know, because the hit point inflation for the higher CR monsters that the DM drops at higher level players, it literally goes into dozens, you know, like sometimes even tens of dozens, hundreds, you know. So yeah, I would say like level 9, 10, it's pretty much it, you know, like, and most campaigns pretty much end there. So I think this build would actually work decently well enough, you know, especially if you consider like a 3rd level in Warlock, and then that gives you 2 second level spell slots, and Warlock spell slots are short rest based, so even if you burn 2 of your Warlock slots to cast Spike Growth, yeah, you just short rest and you have both of them back. So that's ridiculous synergy, right? And obviously not to mention the pack boons and all of the other stuff. But yeah, anyway, I don't want to go too deeper into it. An hour-long video about a 7th level character is pretty much, I think that's enough. If you like the video, if you like the idea behind the build, if you like the build itself and the way I presented it, and the information presented in this video. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell button. Third time in this video I call you to do this. If you haven't done it so far and you're still watching the video, I'm not gonna judge you, but I'm just gonna ask you why. So if you would be so kind and answer that question in the comments down below, that would be very much appreciated. But for everybody else, obviously, if you enjoyed the video, do all of that stuff. Once again, if you want this file, if you want this kind of like notes, and obviously the thing itself, you know, it's not fully fleshed out character sheet, but it's got the basics, you know, and you can just like fill up these things based on your own things that you kind of like want. So yeah, you would get this this PDF, and you would get this note, this like Word file. Head out over to my Patreon page. It's pretty much there. If you join the Magical Secrets tier, you can get PDFs and Word files using all of my videos, including this one. So yeah, based on the fact that if you don't know, I'm still pretty much in the challenge. So my channel, I know that I'm behind, like in the past, I don't know, 12 or 13 days. This is like 5th or 6th video. But I will catch up, don't you worry about it. So in the next 30-ish days, you're gonna be exposed to a lot more videos than I had so far on this channel. My plan is to pretty much double the amount of videos that I had prior to embarking on this challenge. With all of that said, yeah, that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. Min-Max Munchking out, and talk to you soon. More videos very, very soon. Yeah, speak to you soon. Later.